Hello, learners. Welcome all of you to this fourth series of Introductory to NGO Management. Today's module, which is a very important topic and plays a vital role in communication, is interpersonal communication. I, Amrit Raj Shastri, People Office Twin Cities, welcome you to this session. Interpersonal communication. Let's first understand what is the meaning of interpersonal communication. Inter is something between from one to another. Personal meaning concerning your feelings, health or relationship with other people. It could be of or belonging to one particular person. And communication is imparting or exchanging information by speaking, writing or using some other medium. So interpersonal communication is what we are going to discuss in today's session, and this module will be focusing on the various aspects and various disciplines of interpersonal communication. In NGO management, interpersonal communication is very vital for the simple reason being an NGO manager or a team member or a center head or an accountant or a HR in an NGO management, NGO organization would be vital for you that you know yourself, understand what you want and then express yourself. So interpersonal communication is very vital. Interpersonal communication is an exchange of information between two or more people. It is also an area of research that seeks to understand how humans use verbal and non-verbal cues to accomplish a number of personal and rational goals. I repeat, interpersonal communication is an exchange of information between two or more people. It is also an area of research that seeks to understand how humans use verbal and non-verbal cues to accomplish a number of personal and rational goals. Now, we as NGO managers, understanding the dynamics of interpersonal and group communication is important in order to increase our awareness and efficiency of communication in these contexts. Now let me cite or let me take you to a situation where I being or you being an NGO manager, we go and represent ourselves in a corporate client which is ready to offer us or support us with some good cause. Now if we are not aware and if we are not efficient in putting what is expected out of them and in what way they can be of use to us or what the questions would contain or comprise within them sub-questions, then there will be a big chance of failure to clinch the deal or to get the support. Wilmot 1979 describes interpersonal or dyadic communication, interpersonal communication or dyadic communication, which is same, where Wilmot defines as two people involved in a face-to-face transaction. Any direct communication transaction between two people, whether it be fleeting or recurring, is dyadic. I repeat, Wilmot in 1979 describes interpersonal or dyadic communication as two people involved in a face-to-face transaction. Any direct communication transaction between two people, whether it be fleeting or recurring, is dyadic. The characteristics of interpersonal communication. There are certain characteristics which describe interpersonal communication, and they are an inevitable face-to-face interaction, greater involvement, increased participation, and high degree of potential intimacy. Now, being a NGO manager representative or being a representative of an NGO, it is very natural and it is very authentic that you have to go and meet your client or your community or the government institution face to face. You cannot clinch the deal or you cannot say everything or you cannot envelope or you cannot just give an email and just do it. NGO, NGO has to have representatives who go and have a face-to-face discussion. Greater involvement. Your involvement in terms of what is your progress in the past, what you have done, what is your achievement, what you have outnumbered, what is it you're going to aim for the future, what it is that you're going to do, and what would be your action plan to achieve that should be very crisp and clear in presenting in front of your client and all. Participation, yes, participation is always a two-way process. You have to participate as well as you have to be a good listener to make the other person feel he is getting participated, or you are allowing him to participate by evoking your focus, your views, your perceptions, your attention into what the client says. And there has to be a high degree of potential intimacy. Potential intimacy is something where you give the output at every minute and you are very, very close in the discussion. These are the 4 characteristics which are very, very crucial and important for interpersonal communication with regard to the NGO. They are an inevitable face-to-face interaction, greater involvement, increased participation, and high degree of potential intimacy. Interpersonal communication addresses the below queries and which flow as number 1, how humans adjust and adapt their verbal communication and non-verbal communication during face-to-face communication. Then how messages are produced, how uncertainty influences behaviors and information management strategies. Deceptive communication, it explores the flip side of truth. Relational dialectics, it is a theory about close personal ties and relationships that highlights the tension, struggles, and interplay between contrary tendencies. And 6th, social interactions that are mediated by technology. So, interpersonal communication, which is always between 2 persons, addresses the below queries, that is, how humans adjust and adapt their verbal communication and non-verbal communication during face-to-face communication. Number 2, it addresses the query of how messages are produced. Number 3, how uncertainty influences behaviors and information management strategies. Deceptive communication, that is, which explores the flip side of truth. Rational dialectics, it is a theory about close personal ties and relationships that highlights the tension, struggle, and interplay between contrary tendencies. And social interactions that are mediated by technology. Interpersonal communication is again further classified into 2 categories. One is involvement, the other one is self-disclosure. What is involvement? Let's understand, it's a day-to-day word where we speak, we are involved, he is involved, I am involved, we as a group are involved. What is involvement? Involvement is nothing but the degree of involvement in an interpersonal relationship is determined directly by the nature of relationship. The degree of involvement in an interpersonal relationship is determined directly by the nature of relationship. Our most vital roles demand great emotional investment and thus have the potential for both fulfillment and dissatisfaction. Because of the depth of our involvement in an interpersonal relationship, we are likely to experience intense positive or negative feelings about our experience with our role partner. For example, if we take an example, our intimacy and closeness or our involvement in the relationship. Suppose I get into a brawl with my intimate friend. So that would really make me upset. But on the other hand, if I have a quarrel or I have an understanding with a pal in the office, my buddy, I'm going to just forget it after the office hours. So The degree of involvement in an interpersonal relationship is determined directly by the nature of relationship. Okay. For example, that's why I said a fight with a parent or a spouse can be quite upsetting. However, in a small group at the workplace, an argument is less likely to be as upsetting or unsettling. Interpersonal relationships with relatively lesser involvement have the potential for great problem solving and resolution than those with intense involvement. Thus, a difference of opinion between a supervisee can be sorted out without much pain and conflict than one in a marital relationship. Now, moving on. Our most vital roles demand great investment, great emotional investment, and thus have the potential for both fulfillment and dissatisfaction. I repeat, which is very, very important. Our most vital roles demand great emotional investment and thus have the potential for both fulfillment and dissatisfaction. Because of the depth of our involvement in our interpersonal relationship, we are likely to experience intense positive or negative feelings about our experience with our role partner. Involvement. Interpersonal relationships with relatively lesser involvement have the potential for greater problem solving and resolution than those with intense involvement. Now coming on to self-disclosure. We reveal a great deal about ourselves through our non-verbal communication. This is often unintentional and sometimes unknown to us. Intentional self-discourse, on the other hand, occurs more frequently in interpersonal communication than in any other context. Authentic self-disclosure is possible when there is trust and reciprocity in the relationship. This is a gradual process and increases as the relationship progresses. At times, however, we are likely to disclose information about ourselves to people we hardly know. This type of disclosure is known as no-risk self-disclosure. For example, it is not unusual for us to share our concern about close spaces to strangers. This is because we do not have anything to lose. But we may not reveal this information to a prospective employer for the fear of losing a job. And this goes very common, and it's in a day-to-day prevalence that certain, interpersonally, if there is a space where we have a problem, we would certainly not like to reveal it to our colleagues or managers or family and all. But someone who is unknown, we do an analysis. It's okay that if we share, nothing is it that we are going to lose, and we share the same. So, self-disclosure is very, very important. The norms of self-disclosure, particularly in helping relationships which are self-disclosure, should be timely and appropriate in keeping with the nature and stage of relationship. Self-disclosure is always incremental. The purpose is to help the clients or group's well-being and not to make the worker feel better. Now, self-disclosure should not be very, very intimate, very, very personal. It will not solve the purpose if you go and speak out your problems to the client with a tinge of the personal problems or hassles which you are facing, but the overall well-being of the group and the company, that is going to make or clinch the deal, and not the employees or you as a particular who come into place and make your situation better. What is not expected in self-disclosure? Self-disclosure could be about issues the worker has dealt with and resolved. Never discuss problems you are currently grappling with. If you do so, the client's groups are burdened with the responsibility of offering emotional support. Now coming on to a very important concept which would have come some time or the other when we were passed through the graduation or the post-graduation level of our management and all, which is known as the Johari window, having 4 quadrants and all. Now Joseph Luft and Harry Ingman first presented the John-Johann window in 1955 to illustrate relationship in terms of awareness. The Johari window has 4 quadrants: quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Quadrant 1. Quadrant 1 would refer to behavior and motivation that is transparent and known to self and others. Example, a person having good oratory skills. The larger this area, the greater is the person's contact with reality and more available are his abilities and needs to himself and his associates. This can also be labeled the quadrant of openness, honesty, frankness, but not naive. I repeat, quadrant 1 is also labeled as the quadrant of openness, honesty and frankness, but not naive. And the more larger this area, the greater the person's contact with reality and more available are his abilities and needs to himself and his associates now. Quadrant 1 refers to the behavior and motivation that is transparent and known to self and others. Now moving on to the quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is the blind area where others can see things in ourselves of which we ourselves are unaware. Example, a person who comes across as aggressive in speech. Most people's quadrant 2 is larger than they think. This is particularly evident in group or committee situations where the individual's behavior is under the scrutiny of many people. The best example is you invite a speaker who speaks in front, who is prepared and who has a time limit to speak in front of the crowd, but the crowd motivates him or he gets self-motivated that he speaks more than what is expected, and from a normal speaker he is more aggressive in speaking out what is expected out of him. So that is the blind area where others can see things in us which we ourselves are unaware of. That is a person who comes across a aggression in speech. Now moving on to the quadrant 3, it is the hidden area representing things we know but do not reveal to others. One may have a stage fright or inferiority complex which is not known to others. And this is quite practical. What happens is suppose the manager comes and asks all his team members to come and say something about the topic and you find a person who is having the fear of public speaking. So that is known to himself, which he or she confines to himself or herself to prevent that the person would be pointed out or highlighted because of non-speaking skills or the fright which has gone into the mind, and also that is known as quadrant 3. It is the hidden area representing things which we know but do not reveal to others. Quadrant 4 is the area where neither one is aware of one's behavior or motives, yet their existence can be assumed because eventually some aspects become known and realize the influence of these on our relationships all along. A person who is otherwise emotional but stored in a crisis is the best example. Okay? It is the area, the quadrant 4 of Johari window is the area where neither one is aware of one's behaviors or motivators, yet their existence can be assumed because eventually some aspects become known and realize the influence of these on our relationship all along. One can view self-disclosure through the Johann window concept. As relationships progress and mature, self-disclosure increases. This may be true in both dyads and small groups. However, the depth of self-disclosure is more intense in interpersonal relationships. As effective communicators, we need to strive to increase quadrant 1 and reduce quadrant 2, 3 and 4 so that we are aware of ourselves, others, perception of ourselves and how our communication affects our relationship. So as effective communicators, we need to strive to increase quadrant 1 and reduce quadrants 2, 3 and 4 so that we are aware of ourselves, others' perception of ourselves and how our communication affects our relationship. So just a brief about what we have done today. The interpersonal skills, which is the communication between self and the other person. Then we dealt about the characteristics of interpersonal communication and interpersonal communication, how it addresses the below queries. And last but not the least, the two important categories of involvement and self-disclosure. And we also got a safeguard as what we should not be doing in self-disclosure. And we concluded the session with the Johari method. So lastly, I would say the learners, if you represent the NGO management, just do an analysis of yourself. Just pen it down, write what is expected, read it out once, cross-question, ask questions, and then go and meet your client. At the end of the day, it is clinching the deal. So you have to be well prepared and you have to do a thorough interpersonal analysis before going and representing yourselves in front of your prospective clients. So thank you very much, learners. We would come up again with a different module. Thank you.